Okay, so this is the DIY Anniversary Book Card Part 6. We're going to start with a few pages that need to be covered in paint. And I'm going to use more orange. It's a very nice color for fall. And I have probably 3 different shades that I had mixed from reds and yellows and browns that I had bought from the store. And then I thought I could make a little bit more unique colors, and when I had used and emptied the bottles just a little bit, then I had poured and mixed the colors into new kinds of oranges. So that is one of the oranges that I'm using here. So cover the page, most of it, almost all of it. You can do the whole page if you want, but cover most of it. Leaving it a little bit undone is just another way to add texture and variation. And let that dry, probably for about half an hour, and then we'll be able to color another page with paint. This is the first page, black. I had to paint it black, and I didn't actually show you where or when rather that I did that, but this is the first page, and this is the end of the book. So we've got every page that is blank without paper in a different color. Black, orange, a darker orange. We got the 2 pockets, we got the textured paper, and then the last page we're going to paint orange also. And when you think of orange, you just think fall because of the leaves and the pumpkins and the gourds and pumpkin soup and, I don't know, hunting jackets when you go out in the woods and you gotta wear orange jackets. So you gotta think of so that's what I think of when I think of all the orange, different orange things. So that's just gonna be a couple minutes here, and then we'll be able to let that dry for about half an hour. Unless you've got a couple of thick spots on there, that'll take a little bit longer. And there you go. So just a little bit of variation, leaving a few spots a little bit white. And that won't take too long. And from here, we will, I think we're gonna need the stencil next. There it is. This one you can't really see really well, but it's a mandala. And it's circular. It's got a repeating pattern, so in a circle, it's a repeating pattern in a circle, and I put the center in the center of my book and work out from there, so it's kind of like a mirror image pattern on each side, so vertically and horizontally. So you'll press down on the stencil to keep it near the page, and it's kind of hard because the stencil wants to move because the page isn't usually very flat. This book is not opening very flat like a regular book because it has a lot of paper and texture and paint in it already. So you'll have a hard time with that maybe, but it's really not that bad. And just press down with your finger or a stippling brush, those flat-ended brushes, paint brushes. You could dip into there and then on a piece of cloth or paper, and then on your stencil if you've ever done any stippling or stenciling before. But the finger works pretty well. It'll get a little bit smudged, but not too bad. So I'm using a contrasting color here. I've got black and then the white on top, and so you can see the stencil really well afterwards. And then This will take probably at least half an hour as well to dry. When it's done, if a few spots are a little bit thicker, maybe a little bit more. And when you pull off this stencil, pull it straight up or at a very little angle, so you don't pull it to the side and smudge everything. And you want to wash your stencil immediately after using it so that the paint doesn't dry on it. And if your stencil won't dry within half an hour and you're ready to paint again, then you'll have to dry it too. Be careful though, because stencils made out of plastic can cut you. Not like, a few of the edges can be sharp if it's a really detailed stencil. So be careful of your fingers and rubbing your fingers along the inside of the cutout, basically. I've been cut once by a stencil and learned my lesson. So that's dried. We're going to go into the next page. This one, I'm also going to use a contrasting color. It has the stencil right there. It's got an orange background, and on top of the orange I'm going to use black. And that'll make it stand out. It'll kind of be like jack-o'-lantern, you know, but without the face. And I've got my black paint. This is actually chalkboard paint. It's the only kind of black paint that I had. And essentially you could write on top of the paint with like chalk, but you don't, like, if you wanted to you could in this book, but you don't have to. It's just another type of paint that's very easy to do that with. And then I'm smudging it here to try something different, and it actually left a less detailed print of the stencil when I lifted it. And it's another look you can go for if you don't want it as clear cut, designed to be as clear cut, but you can certainly do this if you like. But if you do the tapping up and down with your finger, it's gonna be a better design afterwards. And black was definitely a good choice with this because you can really see the pattern when you lift it up. And again, you'll want to wash this stencil right after, and be careful of the sharp plastic parts. And there you go. So that's a pattern. It's a little bit smudged, but it was a good look. So that too will need half an hour to dry, and then we can go on to the next page and put a stencil on it. The next page is going to be orange as well. So this one's going to dry, and this one is going to be white on orange. And so I'll get my stencil out. It's dried, and I got my paint out, my white paint, put a little bit on the lid if I need to, so that I'll have paint that is easy to get to, and press down on the stencil, just start tapping. So this is the same stencil, but a repeating pattern is not a bad idea in a book for a background. And repeating colors, it's good to stick with a theme. This one will also take about half hour to dry, but you know that by now. And you could also use a gray, or on the black you could have used the yellow. That would have been nice. You could use a very deep red on these oranges if you were going to use another color, if you're getting inspiration to use different color palettes. some bright green sometimes is nice. I would probably use more of an olive or a minty green if I was going to use a green on these. But this book is pretty much closer to a pumpkin feel. So we got the orange and the black with jack-o'-lantern feel there. Almost done with this page. Again, you'll want to clean the stencil right after, but be careful. And we're done. There we go. Yep, pull up the stencil. Put away your paint so it doesn't dry. Now this is the cover. I've got book pages, and I'm ripping it. And I'm going to put glue all over the book and just start laying down pieces. And we're going to cover the whole book in paper. The edges of the book paper is a really good place to line up with the edge of the book because they're already clean lines, and the clean lines will match up. And then the corners of the pages you can also put in the corners of your book and just glue them on top of each other. And it'll be a little bit easier than trying to rip an edge and then lining that up with the edge of your book. This cover is going to be covered in book paper. It's a fine print book paper and it's thin paper. It's really easy to work with. You might get a little bit of bubbles or movement in the paper with the glue, but that's okay. It's just a little extra texture. This shouldn't take too long, which is nice. The longer part is actually the drying time. And this you could also use paper from two different books with different size prints to give it a little bit more variation if you wanted. You know, I haven't used Elmer's glue in a long time, and trying to get decoupage pieces on anything, I have always worked with Mod Podge. So if you use Elmer's glue and you tell me it works fine, please let me know. I have no idea if it works well. Yeah, make sure those extra strings or anything don't get caught on your book page. And it is actually important to pick a side that you like. If there's a page, if the piece of paper needs to be flipped around, you can check both sides. This part, if you were going to leave now and not finish the cover, would probably take at least half an hour to dry, maybe an hour or more. But from this point, if you're going to keep going, you're going to want to look for the cover where the front is, and I just found it, so I know I'm on the right side. And I'm going to put a heart right here, and it's going to be made out of yarn. So I'm putting down just an extra layer of glue. It can be a little bit thick, but not too thick yet. You're going to definitely put a thick layer on, but you want a little bit of a layer to make the heart stick to. So I'm going to use orange. And orange is kind of the theme of this book for a color. And I'm not going to cut the yarn right at the beginning for how long I need it. I'm just going to use it. I'm going to cut a really long piece and then probably a lot more than I'll need, but then cut it after. So I'll shape the profile here on the book. And then once that is secured to the book, I use a little bit of glue with my paintbrush to make sure it sticks. It's going to be like a little pool of paint on the string. And then I'm going to start working the inside with the string. So the inside of the heart will be full of yarn also. So I will start lining the inside of the heart, moving the string along with the paintbrush, trying to make it sit in a little pool of Mod Podge. String will be a little bit tricky, it'll want to move. The Mod Podge does actually help to keep it like in the same spot for a little bit longer. And you can keep working it around. So the shape fills in. Keep adding some Mod Podge. It won't take too long. Hardest part is just keeping the string to stay in place while you pull on pull on the slack and add some more. At some point you're going to find you have excuse me, no more room to add string and you'll want to cut it. So you have your scissors and you'll cut it, and it'll pull a little bit, but you can just put it back in there. And this will have to stay at least a day before it is dry, because that's a lot of Mod Podge. It's at least, I mean, the string is probably a 1/4 inch thick and it's soaked in Mod Podge, so that definitely needs some time. And that is where it'll stay in that part of the process until tomorrow. So there you go. The book cover is done. Yeah! So, thanks for watching, guys. Like and subscribe if you want to see more DIY crafts. I love you guys. Bye.